Yes, I'm ready.
So being 3 o'clock on February the 3rd, I'll call this AMP meeting to order. I would ask Councillor Wing to please read the land acknowledgement.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Bates. The town of Innisfail acknowledges that we are meeting on Treaty 7 territory, the ancestral and traditional territory of the Blackfoot Confederacy, Kainai, Piikani, and Siksika, as well as the Tsuut'ina First Nation and Stoney Nakoda First Nation. We acknowledge that this territory is home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3, within the historical Northwest Métis homeland. We acknowledge the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit who have lived in and cared for these lands for generations. We are grateful for the traditional knowledge keepers and elders who are still with us today and those who have gone before us. We make this acknowledgement as an act of reconciliation and gratitude to those whose territory we reside on.
Thank you, Councillor Wing. I'd like to also acknowledge and just remind everyone that February is Black History Month. So if we'd all just take that in. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? There's not. Could I have a motion to adopt the agenda? Councillor Dunham?
I'll move the agenda as presented.
Thank you. All in favor? Carried. So I guess we'll move right into 3.1, updates from administration.
Yep, thanks. Councillor Deputy Mayor Bates.
Deputy Mayor's fine. I remember trying to say Deputy Mayor in a name, it's tough. Deputy Mayor's good.
Your worship.
Yeah, we don't need that one.
Fair enough. So yeah, I have back in front of council is the report in regards to the active community transportation fund application, and just looking for a little further discussion and direction in regards to the application itself. Previously, we did talk about two projects, one being the off-leash dog park lighting as a potential project, as well as the new parking lot next to the cemetery for the off-leash dog park. We did bring forward a third option, and that is in regards to a project we've been more on a higher level been looking at, and that's is regards to some lighting in regards to the connector trail between Upper Aspen Heights and the Lakewood Drive roadway there. So it's a paved trail. We do have infrastructure through that trail as well, but we do look at potential for some solar lighting along that trail just to allow better safety in regards on that trail at night and lighting up that trail. So we have in front of you three potential options for the application. Just looking for further direction from council.
Okay, and I see you've got suggested recommended motions. I would ask for someone to make the first motion, please, which would give us an excellent springboard to do the discussion. Councillor Maceros.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'd like to move that Council directs administration to apply for the Active Transportation Fund to assist in covering the cost for solar lighting at the dog park and trail solar lighting from Upper Aspen to Lakewood Drive.
Okay, thank you. Discussion. Mayor Barkley.
A question through to Director Kennedy. Just with respect to the solar lighting, can you describe the solar lighting to me, what it looks like?
What we are looking at doing is be very similar lighting to the Aspen Heights trail lighting, where the mounted solar panels would be either on the back of the side of the lights, or in the case of around the dog park, because it's be connected, we would have more of a probably two post light solar panel connection.
Any other questions or discussion? Councillor Dunham.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Bates. When we first had the presentation last year, where the delegation came in to speak to the lighting at the park, I was behind the idea. I feel from my time when I used to take my dogs to the park, that it would be a great addition, especially during the winter months. I like the idea that it would be solar. I think for me, the biggest selling feature right now is the fact that if the Active Transportation Fund grant did come through, that it would definitely minimize the cost to our taxpayers. I also like the addition of that additional pathway for it. I think it would allow better use, better security, and would allow some of our citizens that do have concerns about security to potentially go there with a little bit more ease of mind in being there. And also, the other thing that I found during the winter months is that when there is ice there, when it was dark, I slipped a few times, and by having some amount of lighting, you would probably be able to see some of the icier patches a little bit better as well. So I think it's good, and I look forward to seeing whether we get the grant or not if this goes through.
Councillor Wing?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and through to Director Kennedy. So I have a bouquet and a bit of a rant, and I'll do my rant first just to get it over with. I'm always concerned about unbudgeted kinds of projects, and I appreciate that ties our hands, and I appreciate what happens when grants come up and the opportunity comes up, but we've just gone through a really intense budgeting process, and that's just a concern to me. However, one of the things that we have talked about in the past, and I would like to see us talk about more, especially when we're talking about these kinds of projects, is our commitment to crime prevention through environmental design. And so the more lighting that we can put into the areas where our community members are walking and, riding their bikes or whatever, I think the better it is for the community. So I would support the application for those two components and not the parking lot. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion or comments? I have a couple myself. So I do believe from our last discussion, one of the things that probably had me questioning, probably a little bit harsher than I should have, but was the budget, and thinking also that maybe the priority had changed a little bit on some of these things, and we hadn't really addressed some of the priorities because we had already put some of the things out of the budget. And that's why I was asking things like when we would know, when we're next going to send out a tax notice and actually have our taxes official. I, in principle, support these two, in particular the lighting. I'd like to know a couple more dates, though. When might we know if we are going to have a 2024 surplus? Through to the director.
Deputy Mayor, it won't be until closer to the end of audit. Probably likely the first council meeting in March is when we'll know what the surplus is.
Okay, that's pretty early. And when might, through to Director Kennedy, when might we know if we have approval of budget, of the, sorry,
To Deputy Mayor, they haven't provided any direction in regards to awarding, notice of awards, just the deadline for the application.
and that
which
was
is end
in
of February. Yep,
end of February, so.
correct.
So there's a good chance we might know some of those things before we get the grants. And, yeah, I was struggling too with that thought of, we were down looking for $5,000 here and there, and then it's so hard to refuse doing something once you get a grant, obviously. That's the confliction that I saw. And then the last question, obviously, would the grant be such that we could pursue one or the other if they weren't big enough to do both? Like, if we get a partial approval? Are they such that you don't have to proceed with both? Could you do one and not sink as much of the partnering money if to do both?
Right, we would come back to council in regards to the amount that we would receive. It's a maximum, obviously, of 60%, but what we would do is come back upon acknowledgement of award and say if it was only 40%, then it's still up to council to approve we're not approving the actual project itself right now, so
Okay.
it would be able to be decided upon at that time.
But we submit for one grant.
We're spending for one grant for the
Okay.
two projects, yes.
Thank you. That answers my questions. Any other? Councilor Dunham.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Bates. I guess I'm a little confused because at our last regular council meeting, when we were going to bring this up at AP, I thought we were going to have a more robust discussion around the concept of the lot because there were some concerns around the parking lot. Did I miss something, or are we
think-
going to potentially have that discussion down the road when we see if we get the grant or not?
To Councilor Dunham's question, Deputy Mayor, I believe the director's saying, based on some of the conversation last week, the director is recommending to proceed to move the parking lot off the application and put it to the lighting of the dog park and the Lakewood Trail. Unless council feels differently. Yeah, and really just looking for further direction, if council were to want to debate that one a little bit more. Really, it's on the list of priorities in the trail master plan, and our priorities there, that parking lot is in that report. So it will still be there if it gets brought up again, is another opportunity. We'll bring it up at that time.
Okay, I guess it was just my misunderstanding. So if it's off the table for this, then I'm totally good with that. Thank you.
Okay, so any other? So it's clear that the motion relates to two lighting projects? I'll call the question. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. So if we could proceed with 3.2, I would assume it's Director Vickers.
Actually, sorry, Councillor Bates,
What'd I
Deputy
miss?
Mayor Bates, we have one more
Oh,
motion.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Easily done.
No, that's okay.
Yeah, the second part of this, which I think will be very easy to proceed with, that if I could have a motion, the second motion, please, which is just a direction related to
Go ahead.
Mayor Barkley.
That council directs administration to come back for approval to proceed if the application is successfully awarded.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Nope. Call the question. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Now we can proceed to 3.2.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor Bates. So this report is just to provide council with a review of bylaw 1669, 2021, which is our election sign bylaw. So our election sign bylaw was enacted by us back in 2021 to regulate the placement, size, and removal of election signs within our municipal boundaries. The purpose of our bylaw is to ensure the fairness, safety, and aesthetic considerations while also allowing election candidates to communicate effectively within the public. This review will outline the key provisions, restrictions, enforcement mechanisms, and penalties that are associated within the current bylaw. There are clear guidelines for the installation and management of election signs. This does apply to elections administered by the town under the Local Authorities Election Act, any school board elections under the Education Act, as well as any elections managed by Elections Alberta or Election Canada that are held within the municipality. Candidates and registered third parties are responsible for ensuring that the election signs comply with the size limitations, placement rules, and maintenance requirements. Sign owners must also remove damaged or vandalized signs promptly to maintain visual standards and prevent public complaints. Election signs must not exceed 1.2 meters by 1.2 meters or 4 feet by 4 feet, and they also must be non-illuminated. So the town does have 5 approved locations currently within our bylaw for public land. So the town-owned properties, they are outlined in Schedule A, but they are here. So 42nd Street, so an area east of 60th Avenue on the south side and area west of 60th Avenue on the north side. This location offers high visibility along a well-traveled corridor while minimizing disruption to the traffic flow. The second place is intersection of 50th Street and Highway 2A on the southwest corner. It's a primary gateway into town. 54th Street between 40th Avenue and 49th Avenue on the north side, and 49A Avenue between 54th Street and 56th Street on the southwest side. 52nd Avenue between 42nd Avenue and 33rd Street, on the east side, as well as Lakewood Drive between 56th Street and 50th Street connector on the west side. However, private property signs are also allowed. They do require consent from the property owner. Signs may be installed up to 45 days before municipal general elections, so that is September 5th of this year is when election signs will first be allowed. And then all signs must be removed within 72 hours after the close of polls. The bylaw does place several restrictions to maintain public safety and order. So signs must be at least 20 meters apart if they belong to the same candidate and must be positioned at least 2 meters away from any roadway pavement. Election signs cannot be placed at any voting stations or within the property where a voting station is located on election day. And placement is prohibited in areas that obstruct visibility or create traffic hazards, as is outlined in Schedule B attached to the bylaw. Additionally, election signs must not incorporate the Town of Innisfil logo or any branding and must not obstruct existing traffic or municipal signage. So enforcement officers, which include an RCMP member as well as our community peace officers, are authorized to monitor compliance. Officers may remove signs that violate placement or safety restrictions. They can impound non-compliant signs without prior notice and dispose of unclaimed signs after 30 days. Immediate removal is warranted for any sign posing a public safety risk and interfering with municipal operations. So the bylaw sets forth some financial penalties for violations. So offenders may receive either a municipal ticket or a violation ticket. The minimum fine is $100 and the maximum penalty will be up to $10,000. And I'm just looking for council to have some discussion to see if this is still inappropriate for this year's election, to see if any changes would like to be made.
Okay. Thank you. I'm going to ask the mayor for advice. Can we just discuss this before we move? Yeah. Councillor Wing.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just one question through to the director. I know that this bylaw was enacted in 2021. Did it serve the purpose well? Is there any reason that we should be considering making any changes or amendments to it?
Deputy Mayor Bates, through to Councillor Wing. Administration, we have reviewed the bylaw this year. We feel we had no complaints at last election. We see no need to change anything outside of maybe different locations if you'd like to add one or things like that, but we don't see there to be any need at this time.
Councillor Maceros.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Bates. Through to Director Vickers. I was interested in the financial impacts, and those are could be pretty heavy. What makes the difference between a $100 fine and a $10,000 fine?
Deputy Mayor Bates, through to Councillor Mazzaro. So the $100 fine would likely be the violation ticket that they would receive directly from our peace officers. The $10,000 fine would be a much serious violation. That would be a court case and it would be levied by a judge likely.
And what would be an example of that?
Just continued, like multiple offenses that you've been convicted of first, second, third offenses, then you would go back to judge and it would be a way to penalize the person. But this would be many offenses that would have to happen for that fine to ever be levied.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
And another note, we did not give any violation tickets out during last election. The most common issue would be we would just remove the sign in violation. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I do have one or two myself. So if someone did have violations, we would make sure that they were contacted, I would assume, over and above just taking the sign. So they at least knew why it disappeared, or that, is that a fair question?
Yes, Deputy Mayor Bates, if one of our staff members, the peace officers, did remove a sign, we would reach out to that candidate and explain why that sign was removed.
Would we ever go the other way and actually ask them to remove it before we did, or?
It depends on the severity of the sign. If it was truly a safety risk, we would remove it right away. However, if it was some other issue, we would likely reach out to them to have them adjust it. Maybe it just needed to be moved in location. But we would reach out to them first before we would get peace officers involved.
Okay, thank you. And then the only other comment I have is relative to locations. Having done this myself for 3 times, and then even looking at some of our federal and provincial, it seems like the corner, I know it's the main entrance to town, that becomes the worst area, in my opinion. I know I've fought for space there to put my signs up, and then you find other signs in front of your signs. And I seriously wonder, over the period of the election, everybody's gonna know who's running, and there's always signs on lawns over and above all these other, and I just wonder about potentially removing that one as a, it becomes a horrible clutter, the wind seems to catch that corner, and I just wonder if we would be compromising the election process in any way if we didn't have that one. Just, I guess I'm throwing that out there for fellow council to talk about.
Deputy Mayor, I would agree with that. It's, you know, you get 11 or 12 or 15 signs at that corner, it becomes quite a mess, and not sure when the federal election will happen, but it could be happening at the same time if the schedule stays the same. So you now maybe add 3 or 4 more. So I'm wondering if it's a pretty tight space in there.
Deputy Mayor Bates, would you be, and through to Mayor Barkley, through to council, removing it number 2 altogether, or potentially transitioning it past the corner along to that curve where you see all those trees? There would be a much farther grassy area to use, or would you think just removing that location altogether? Right, if you see just to the east, over
Yeah,
where it kind
no,
of
I-
curves up over those trees, I don't know.
I've seen them appear in there unauthorized. It's an awfully busy intersection, there's lots of traffic, I almost think remove it, but
Just remove
that's
it?
just, I just believe there's lots of other places around town, and that, again, just because we're reviewing it, it came to me that that seemed to be a consideration.
Yeah, I would agree to remove it as well.
Okay, so do we,
I'll have to take that back, and I will bring a updated bylaw at either next week or,
so just that correction to the bylaw?
yeah. Just to clarify that that is the only change that is needed, just to remove location number 2? Okay, perfect.
Deputy Mayor?
Nope.
It's through to Director Vickers, that there has been comments in the past, I don't know how many, or about even the location that runs along the cemetery, that should that be there? Because, you know, I realize it's maybe not cemetery land, but certainly close to it, and, you know, some feedback that is that being disrespectful by having that area cluttered with signs. So I don't know if there's another spot that,
What if we switch it to the library side? Way it's off, still on the same corridor, but just not closer to the library side, or to the cemetery lands?
yeah, I'll leave it with you. I've heard that in the past, and like I said, I don't know if it was 1 or 2 people that were commenting, or whether you'd had any feedback in the past, but.
So I did a double check late last week, and I couldn't find any comments that were
Okay.
lodged in Civic Web, so I don't know
Okay.
if CAO Becker or yourselves would have received any complaints from at the last election?
To Mayor Barkley's question, I heard some references last election. Also heard a reference to counter that, you know, those, it's serving the community, it's, should be accommodated. So I heard kind of both sides of that, but I did recall hearing that.
Yeah, and fair enough, I'm not saying not to, I'm just saying that those are comments I did hear, but whether, I'll leave it with you to bring it back, and I'm fine where it is, but if you feel there should be a change, so be it.
Okay.
Perfect.
I don't know whether even maybe specifying X number of distance to the east of the path or something would keep it that much removed from the cemetery maybe, and then maybe certain distance back from the entrance or something. That's just thoughts, but having eliminated one, I'm not sure. I think we've eliminated what I think is the most controversial one, and one that has almost produced conflict between candidates. But okay, could I have the recommended motion, please? Councillor Dunham,
I move the council accepts the report as information.
all in favor? Carried. Okay, I guess if we could have a quick look at the correspondence, is there? guess there's the, I don't know if anyone else has any comments. There's the challenge. I'm not sure how we've addressed challenges in the past. And does anyone want to discuss the RCMP stats first, I guess?
Deputy Mayor, I guess I would reach out to you or others that may have been at the, I guess it was just you at the Police and Safe Community. So were there any concerns from the RCMP? I mean, we see the stats and
I think the main comment that we heard from Sergeant Imey was that they recognized some trends up, but the trends, if you took them right to the exact stats, they were almost nil. It was that 2 or 3 incidents can raise a stat a big percentage when you're at a very low level, and we were at a very low level. And of course, we are now literally opening up the current survey, so that can give us further direction. But that's what I heard. The CAO Becker was there as well. I don't know if.
I guess in addition, I'm wondering, I see on one of the stats, the percentage of time spent with mental health calls, and if that was discussed at all, or are there,
It wasn't,
Okay.
not specifically.
okay,
Go ahead.
Deputy Mayor Bates to Mayor Barkley. So one of the tasks to administration is to work through the safety and well-being plan. One of those action items is to engage more community on the mental health component. Council's talked about this a few times over your term. Right now, we're going to be meeting probably in the next 3 weeks to a month to start to pull out of that action plan based on capacity and start recommending to committee, to council, a go-forward plan. Certainly it is slated to dive in, but certainly notice those stats in this document associated with mental health. So not really an answer, but certainly trying to pull it up as an action and when, I guess that would be.
I'm also wondering, Deputy Mayor, through to CEO Becker, also wondering, if there's would be any reach out, whether that's through FCSS or even through to social workers in the community, whether that's at the hospital or someplace like McMahon, to get their feedback on that as well. I know last week at the Refocusing Healthcare, that was a discussion at our table. I had 2 social workers at the table I was sitting at, and obvious increase in mental health supports that are needed, and the files that they're dealing with. And
Yeah, definitely, Mayor Burke. I believe the action plan is associated with that, the interagency and community conversation. Again, trying to find out when and how that looks like, and see if council wishes to advance that engagement.
okay, no, thank you.
Okay, and I'll add that I personally did the survey again today, and there are several questions in there that should, get a barometer again from the community as to how people are feeling. But certainly the mental health has formed a significant portion of the well-being, it's safety and well-being community, policing and well-being committee. So, yeah, let's not lose it. I think that'll be captured. Yeah, any comments on the challenge? I find that kind of thing to be difficult to deal with because it's a personal thing, and it's really hard to.
Yeah, we didn't do anything last year. It was in correspondence, but we did not officially participate in that. So just leave that up to individuals, I think, if anybody wants to.
Yeah, and I know we do have a lot of dedicated people. Okay, roundtable discussion. And we'll start with
Can we get a
Councillor.
motion
Oh,
first?
I'm sorry. Could I have a motion to accept the
I'll make
correspondence?
that motion.
Thank you. Councillor Wing, all in favor? Carried. It's so easy to want to just keep going here. Councillor Dunham.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Bates. I will be submitting my council activities for next week's meeting.
Okay. Councillor Wing.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Worship.
Last week, just of note, we did have our Innisfail Public Library Board meeting last Tuesday evening, and we actually had a pre-audit meeting with BDO. So that's the first time that the board is actually engaged at that level, and that was a really good thing, and the auditor was very informative and helpful, and so anyways, we'll meet with him again once everything is done, and I think there'll be some questions that are coming to you, Director Vickers, as well, so that's all good. Parkland Executive Committee, and then I did participate at an Alberta Health Services consultation last Thursday evening, not council-related at all, it was a community consultation, kind of a report back on all the system work that's happened over the last year. I didn't necessarily hear the word patient very often, but I heard lots about new departments and new boards and new everything. So anyways, and then tomorrow I'll be attending our meeting with MP Dreeshen. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I guess I'm next according to the agenda, and I don't want to deviate. I really don't have a lot. I'll have a report for next week. The one thing I did want to point out, because I mentioned it last week, was the date for the RCMP Town Hall. It would appear has been set for February 19th, which was not one of the two options that I thought we were considering, but that's all right. It works in my calendar. Yeah, Councillor Maceros.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Bates. I also I'll have my report in for next week. It was a quiet week last week. Thank you.
Mayor Barkley.
Yeah, thanks. I'll put a report in for next Monday.
Okay, thank you. I don't think we need any motions beyond that on this item. So we'll move to upcoming events, which I guess we can add the RCMP Town Hall to now. And is there any other comments or additions or? All good?
I do
Oh, I'm
have
sorry.
I do have a
Let's hear it.
Parkland Foundation meeting on the 6th at 10 a.m. that I do not see in there, so, but that's the only addition that I have.
Okay, and I believe MPC is canceled for the 4th of February. So could I have a motion that we receive this for information?
Sure, I'll make that motion that we receive the events for as information.
Thank you. Councillor Maceros, all in favor? Carried. Upcoming events, sorry, we've done that. Closed in camera. Could I have a motion to move in camera? Mayor
I'll
Barkley.
make that motion.
Thank you. All in favor? I don't know if you need